I'm Taryn Rosenkrantz, and this is Political Trail Mix, where strategy meets storytelling, and every episode unpacks the people, power, and politics shaping our country. Let's dig in. Hi, I'm Taryn Rosenkrantz, and this is another edition of Political Trail Mix. I have with me one of my dear friends and one of the people that I just admire most in this world because she does so many cool things. And we also always have a great time talking. We end up spending hours talking when we do. And I love that too about her. But I want to introduce Stefanie Cruz, who's on with me today. And Stefanie, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Thank you so much, Taryn. I'm excited to be here with you. Super fan of you and your work as well, and the work we've done together over the past couple of years. So, a little bit of background on me. I am a digital and social media strategist. I've been doing this work for about 20 years, which makes me feel really old.
Ah, same,
I
same,
think,
same, same,
okay,
same.
it was
We're good. We're good.
2006 when I arrived in DC, so literally 20 years. But that has involved, in 2006, helping members of Congress and elected officials understand what social media was when Facebook and YouTube and Twitter were all new, really thinking about how to use these platforms to connect with constituents, how to connect the gap between what's happening in DC and what's happening back home. I must say, I maybe regret some of the training I did. Maybe we shouldn't have elected officials on social media. I don't know. Looking
That's
back,
to
I'm
be
like,
debated at another time.
yeah, like I don't think that was the intention. It has evolved quite a
It has
bit.
evolved. Yeah.
And then I transitioned after leaving Capitol Hill. I was there for about 10 years working with Congressman Sandy Levin of Michigan, where we really built out his digital platform, transitioned to the nonprofit sector, and spent a number of years working at ARP. I also was the VP of Marketing and Digital Strategy for America's Promise Alliance, which was General Colin Powell's education foundation. And then since about 2018, I've been doing consulting. And I founded and launched the DigiGeeks Collective in 2021. And we specifically work on social impact projects. So we work with nonprofits and organizations that are looking to create good in the world. And if you aren't looking to create good in the world, then we don't want to work with you. Um, so it's kind of fun. In addition to sort of the day-to-day work that I've done, I also was part of the resistance movement against Trump in 2017. So I got brought in with a couple of team members to lead all digital and social media strategy for the Women's March. It was a few days before the Women's March, and the team that was there really wanted to be out and marching, and so they needed a social media team to really handle the day of. And then I was also part of the team that did social media strategy for the March for Our Lives with the Parkland students. So really got to understand sort of the quick mobilizing of action and how digital and social supported that during that time, which was challenging times.
Oh, and this is like what Steph does, to be fair. She is like, they're like, oh, you want to make something virtual in like the next, minute? And she's like, okay, sure. And I appreciate that about you. And I think it's wonderful because so much of what you do is really bring some of these really cool things to everybody. Like, so even if you can't be there marching, you can still be a part of it and you can still feel a part of it and feel like you're doing stuff. The other reason I really love working with Steph, I will say, is because we just get shit done, right? You tell her to do something on a dime, like a couple days before the Women's March, and she's like, "Sure, no problem." Like, and
A
that's, I
million
think,
people in DC.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
sure.
no problem. Which is how the world should work, right? Like, just get it done. Just get it done. We don't need to do all of this. But because of that, I will say, we are digital operatives. We are digital people. We are living and breathing this every day. We were talking about this a little bit before we, officially started the podcast. And I can say, how do we stay sane? And what can we do to help each other stay sane and to make progress and to do these wonderful things, to
Yeah.
participate in these big events without like losing our minds?
I think the funny part is I would say I'm not sane at this present moment. I think everything feels overwhelming in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. I think what we're February 2026, the day
Yeah.
after the State of the Union, right? And it's just every day there's new information, every day there's new attacks on issues that we care about and people that we care about. So I think in terms of staying sane, it's like being really gentle with
Yeah.
ourselves. And I think there was a situation that happened actually when I was working with you, Taryn, and a member of your New Blue team when we were launching Congressman Tim Ryan's presidential campaign. And like, you know how presidential campaigns are, like all the campaigns, it's like all hands on deck. It's like you do everything you have to get done to like meet the mission, which for us was announce the campaign, which I
Yeah.
think we had like 6 weeks to do. And one of your colleagues was like, Steph, I think you need to step away. Like,
Yeah.
I think you just need a break. And there's been a couple of times where I've been in really intense moments because, like you said, people are like, oh, we need you to do this tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. But
Yeah.
in reality, that does not mean I'm not like pushing myself to the max
Yeah.
and
Right.
just reaching out to our colleagues and our friends and saying, like, hey, I see you. I know
Mhm.
you're doing a lot, but it's okay to take a break and you're going to be
Yeah.
better when you come back. So there's been a couple of people in my time working in this field and digital and social, like it's 24/7, right?
Right.
Like, and we
It never
touch
stops. You have
everything.
to make your own boundaries. You do. You do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just
Yeah.
constantly evolving.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's so right. And I do think like we don't take enough care of our own selves. So I love the idea of like being able to take care of each other. And I think that's good. And I think, you make a good point about just making sure we find those momentary breaks and those the things. Is there anything else you kind of do to try to take care of you when you're in this digital world? Like what's your favorite thing to do?
It's gonna sound silly, but my favorite thing to do are like my hair. I like
Oh
my
my
hair and my
gosh.
nails. Like I just
Oh,
I
those
just
are
need
not silly. Those are important things. Those are
they're at
important
the
things.
top of my self-care. Like, take a moment because honestly, we can run ourselves ragged, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can work all the time, nonstop, because there's always a need. There's something always. And it's like identifying, okay, what's that one thing that feels like a long enough pause? And
Yeah.
I've worked with other colleagues where they're just like, Steph, I had to get my hair cut, or I
Yeah.
just had to, right? And it's like, for our roles and how much like need there is for what we do, I think sometimes we can just take for granted the little moments to step away and do something for ourselves.
Oh my gosh. And it's so important. But I think like something about doing both of those things too are like also physical and it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Stop.
actually
Yeah.
literally you have to step
Yeah.
away. Like you can't
Yeah. Yeah.
necessarily do those things at the same time as many of the other things that you might be able to do. So I do think that's really important. And I love that because again, I think it's like making your bed or whatever. Or like, if the room is clean and uncluttered, if you
Mhm.
look and feel your best, then you're going to do your best and you're going to be able to keep going. Because things are decisive and divisive and it's hard not to feel kind of down. And I find myself like working from home and doing digital that like sometimes you're in your sweats and you're like, oh, I haven't left the house. This isn't like really healthy. So having that moment to like kind of take a step back and get dressed
I'm
in
in
the
my,
right way, do your
yeah, yeah,
hair, like do your
yeah.
nails, like be ready. So,
Karen, I'm in my sweats most of the time, not
oh,
some
I
of the
mean,
time.
my other alternative is leggings, but they do
Yeah.
make fun of me at all of our virtual meetings that like I have a different hoodie on. They're like, "How many hoodies do you actually own?" I'm like, "Oh, I have a lot. I have a collection."
I do
Some
too.
people have suits. I have a collection of hoodies. They're very nice. They're very comfortable, and I spend good money on them.
Yeah. Most of mine are campaign merch too,
Yeah. Oh
or
yeah.
like client merch, right?
Yes.
Our causes and issues. And
Yes.
I'm like, oh, we've created a lot of merch over the years. But I'm with you. Lots of hoodies, lots of leggings, lots of sweats, which is why something as basic as pause, leave your
Yeah.
house, sit in somebody else's chair, let
Yeah.
somebody else do something for you is so important.
I'm gonna put that on a post-it. I like that. Sit in someone else's chair. Actually, that is such a deeper moment, meaning and moment, like than just like yourself. But it is like just, and it's a good reminder to get out of the house and get out of your desk chair and your world that you're sitting in, because it does change your attitude too. So much of what we have worked on, I think over the last, I don't know, however many years. It was before COVID, so it's been a while.
Yeah.
I will say has been different advocacy work, nonprofits, and, obviously some campaigns, as you just mentioned. But like, I think one of the things I always ask people about is like, from all the work that you've been doing, you are impacting change. You are making good happen. You are doing all these wonderful things. Like, what do you think you've learned about leadership, like in particular from that? I'm just curious, like I literally, because you're seeing all these people do amazing things, like the Women's March and the March for Our Lives. These are people at these like really traumatic moment who, when faced with this trauma or faced with what is seemingly, what seems like the end of the world, they have turned that into triumph. And I'm just curious if you have some top things you've learned from folks.
Yeah, I think one of the top things I've learned is the importance of kindness.
Mm,
I think when things are moving so fast, when people have lots of power and control over a lot of things, and there are important decisions to be made, I think the leaders that lead with like empathy and kindness for their team, for their family, for like how their decisions impact others, those are the leaders that have like inspired me and kind
mm,
of given me something to take away. One of my favorite memories with Congressman Sandy Levin, who I worked with for almost 10 years, was that it didn't matter if he was on the House floor, if he was meeting with a dignitary, it didn't matter who he was talking to. If his wife called or his kids called, we had to find him like
yeah,
immediately,
yeah, yeah,
like hunt him down on the floor because he wanted to take that call from his wife or
yeah.
his family. And I've just always taken that away of like, okay, it doesn't matter what we're doing, it doesn't matter how busy we are, it doesn't matter kind of the position that we have. It
Mhm.
doesn't give an excuse to treat people poorly. It doesn't give an excuse to, you know, not take the moment to be
Yeah.
considerate and thoughtful. And I think you get better
Be there for
results
your
from
family.
people. Huh?
I said, and be there for your family, right? Like
Yeah.
answer the
Yeah.
call. Answer the
Yeah,
call.
something so simple. But I was like,
Mhm.
Really? Like, you're busy. Should I interrupt you?" They're like, "Yes, you find him. And it doesn't matter what he's doing. He wants to answer this call from his wife." And I was like, wow, like that's so valuable and so important. But I think um you get better results from people. You
Yeah.
get better, like as a leader, people are not showing up in fear of you. They're not showing up because they have to. They're showing up because they know you respect them, that you
Hmm.
value them. And I do think you get better results from your colleagues, your friends, your family understands where they stand in your life while
Yeah.
you're working on
Which is
all of these
important.
really important things. Yeah. So that is one of my kind of favorite memories and things that I feel like I've learned that I try to, as CEOs and leaders of our own businesses, like I try to think of that and remember that every day of like, how can I lead with empathy and kindness?
Yeah. Well, and it makes such a difference because then when something happens in their lives, they know they can take the call. They know that they have the support of you to be there and that you're going to respect the fact that we all, work to live, not live to work, which is really the
We
key
try.
element. Yeah, I try. I
We
know, I
try.
try. That's
I
the
was
problem with being a
thinking,
CEO.
yeah, I was thinking, how would my daughter feel about this question? Because
Yeah.
I sometimes don't answer her call, but I have to call back right away,
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, yes, as soon as you possibly can. I mean, also,
yeah,
like, I don't know if your daughter is anything like mine, and I love mine to death, but she would call me to be like, listen, I have this idea for 6 months from now about where we should go on vacation. And like, at the moment, that's an emergency to her, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
maybe
And
could
that would
wait
be more
20
important than
minutes.
recording your podcast, Mom. Like, we need to talk about this right now. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other day I
My
was in physical therapy and she called back like twice and I like finally was like, oh, let me just answer this. Like, I don't know what's wrong. Like, and it was like, so I think that I'm going to take this class next year. And I was like, this can wait 15 minutes. Like you did like the code when you called twice. It's like, you don't call twice like, because it's not an emergency. She was like, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Oh no, no, they call twice. They
Turns
call
out, turns
twice.
out.
Yes, yes, they
Yeah,
do.
yeah, we're learning, we're learning. Well, I think that first of all, I will say, being, and this is something I didn't necessarily tell you I wanted to talk about ahead of time, but I will say, I think it goes to leadership too, but being a female CEO running this company and business on your own and having a family and balancing all of that. Like, if you're anything like me, I'm like, I don't have any good advice because I feel like I'm always like spinning plates and, running down the street. But I'm curious if you do have any advice for anyone or any kind of ways that, we talked about balance and self-care and we
Yeah.
talked about all the stuff that we
Yeah.
try our best to do.
Yeah.
And that we're not sane, and that's okay. I think being gentle was a perfect way of describing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more of the same, is doubling down on like giving yourself grace. Grace for that moment where you didn't answer the call, or grace for the moment that you were trying to split yourself in three to be in three different places at once, whether it's showing up for a client, but also showing up for my daughter, but showing up for a friend, right? Like there's
Yeah.
competing priorities on top of the fact that there's like feels like the world is on fire a little bit
Yeah.
around
Oh
us,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there is like this background of like things are not exactly operating as normal. And giving ourselves grace in that moment. My daughter's a freshman in college. And what that means, I've learned, is that she has a lot of breaks in between classes.
Oh yeah. So
And
she,
mom is a great like filler for I'm walking to the
sure.
bus. I'm
Yeah.
on the car. I'm, waiting for my class to start. So
The
I get about
narration of her life. I love that. I love
yeah,
that.
so I get like 10, 15 calls a day, which I'm so grateful for. But I'm also like, hey, I'm talking to so and so. And she's like, well, I'm more important.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I have to pay your college tuition, right? So it's
There
like,
is that. There is that.
yeah, yeah, there's that balance of like reality and business. And I think you and I also like we care about the
Mhm.
issues that we work on, right? We're not doing this just to cash a check, but like we care about the issues. So the combination of the passion I have for the work that I do and the clients that I service, and then the care I have for my daughter and for my family, combined with this comes back to us, the
Yeah.
individual, right? Like, how do I make sure I don't lose myself in that?
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing we can give ourselves is grace. Like at the end of the night, I didn't do everything right, but I know I tried,
Yeah.
right? I tried the
Yeah.
best that I could.
Yeah.
And I think just feeling like that is what you can do. And sometimes that means you have a whole to-do list that didn't get done. And sometimes that means you have to call your kid back the next day because you weren't able to
Yeah.
connect that day. And sometimes that means you're going to miss, an important event for someone. It's either
Right.
missing it for a client, the kid, yourself, whatever it is. It's like you're gonna miss something, but you can't be everywhere at
Well,
once.
and the universe intervenes, right? Like there's all these things. Like I remember I tried so hard once to get home from a business trip. We were at like a candidate retreat or something, and I tried so hard to get home because I wanted to be there when my son found out like, where he was going or school. I forget what it was. It was some like big news, and I'm like, I'll be home for this big moment. And instead, like the email comes hours ahead of time. Like like, it was like, here I am, like flying. I got up at like 6 in the morning, but instead, like the email came like the night before, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like,
You tried.
but
You
I
tried.
tried. And you know
Yeah.
what? He didn't need me in that moment. And that was what was
Yeah.
kind of funny to me. It was like, I was like, well, I was going to do that in case it didn't work out the way you wanted, right? Like, but
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
did. So the universe on both sides intervened, right? I didn't necessarily need to be there. Though sometimes I'm like, I've put myself through the ringer to get here.
I'm with you. I am
But
with
then
you.
I'm gentle and kind with myself and say, well, I'm doing the best I can. My house may be messier than it should be, and I may not have, groceries or clean laundry, but I'm here and I made it or whatever it is. We kind of get there. And I actually like, I love saying this to people who are, think they're not doing enough. I think this is one of the things one of the questions I definitely wanted to ask you because of all the work that you do. It's like, what would advice or what would you tell people, right? Like who want to be involved in politics, but there's also now this like guilt. It's like we have mom guilt, we have work guilt, and now people have this like, well, the world's on fire and I'm not like personally holding a hose every 24 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week to put
Yeah.
out the world. And I'm like, that's not your responsibility. It took everybody in the world to get here. And so it doesn't
Yeah.
mean like don't do anything, but I think there's this feeling of overwhelm. And there's a lot of organizations you work with where you can be helpful. And I'm just curious to shoot out your
Yeah.
very, very wise musings, if you will.
I think this question around, especially for young people, like, we've been in DC a long time.
Yeah.
But there are young people coming here and older people who are thinking of career changes, right? There's not exactly always the right time to come to DC. You could have 20-year-olds, you have 35-year-olds, folks coming in at lots of different times. And I think the biggest piece of advice I would give would be to stay authentic to yourself,
Yeah.
right? I think there's this concept that you have to go to all the networking events and you have
Yeah.
to be connected to the right people in order to get the job. But what I've found is like the people who are most authentic, who are most reliable, like I know I can give you an assignment and you're going to get it done. I know exactly who you are. You're not trying to be someone with me and then be someone with someone else in the
Yeah.
office, right? Like you are consistently who you are. You consistently do the work that you're being asked to do. Everything else kind of falls into place. And I
Yeah.
think those folks who end up like chasing the contacts and trying
Mhm.
to get too close to the elected official or the member of
Yeah.
Congress or whatever that is, we know who those people are. And like, they're not necessarily, they might advance in the short term. They're not the folks who last. They're not the folks
Yeah.
who people end up trusting completely, people end up depending on. Those people are genuine, they're themselves, they're dependable. So I think if you focus more on like understanding who you are before you
Yeah.
arrive in DC, before you get involved in any issue or any political campaign, understanding what you have to offer and committing yourself to doing the best possible work that you can, it's okay to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Like it's easy to make mistakes in
It's
this work.
easy to make mistakes.
It's
I mean,
easy. It's
yeah.
easy. But if you show up and it's like authentically, like you did the best that you could and you consistently are yourself and you're genuine and you're true. You have people on your team like this, right? Like I know you do because I love working with them and they get on their
I have a
calls and
good
they're
team, I
just, you have an
admit.
amazing team and they're who they are and they want to be helpful and they're authentically themselves. And I
Yeah.
think in politics, in some advocacy work, people can lose that part of
Yeah,
themselves,
100%. And it's like one of
especially in
our core
DC.
values, I feel like, as a company. Like, we're like, if we're going to do this and we're going to do it all together, like, we have to have a community. And that community has to be that we're going to help each other and we're going to care about each other and that we're all going to understand that we're all each, like, we're going to be real, right? Like, the only way to have a community is that you have to be real.
Yeah, and it's less about like, oh, who can Taryn introduce me to? And it's
Right.
more about like, okay, Taryn, you have 10 things on your plate. How can I be most helpful to you in this
Yeah.
moment? Right?
Yeah.
That is going to go much further than trying to connect the dots with who knows who. Like, you just never know in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
town.
And I feel like there's more than one path, especially now with like social media and digital and everything else that's happening in the world. I do feel like when I sort of like arrived into a scene, it was like if you didn't go be like an LC on the Hill, like you were never going to be able to do anything in politics. Like you had to intern on the Hill for free, and then you had to go be an LC or else, which in reality, like, all you were doing, especially in those days, was like some like printing out a letter that you sent someone. Not even they had just like discovered email, right? Like, but it's like now I don't think anybody thinks about that they have to work. I don't think that mindset exists that they have to work on the Hill.
Yeah.
But I think what has stayed is that I do need to know who people know. And I think that's the best advice ever is like, like just be
No.
you and then your work will shine through. And that will be so important because you don't have to have just one job. You don't just have to have the perfect job or know the perfect person. There's all these paths to success now. And I think that's a good thing, right? Like,
I
not
agree.
that being, working on the Hill. I'm sure you would
We
say
love
working on the
LCs.
Hill.
We do. We do. I mean,
We
someone needs
do.
to respond to all these constituents. We do.
All of this outreach, especially right
Yeah.
now with everything that's happening, everybody has
Yeah.
the right to, and should. And I know that that's some of the work we do too, is that we encourage people to write their members. So we definitely need legislative correspondence at the on the Hill to do those things. But I do think, one of the things I always tell people too is like if you are wanting to do something and you want to feel like you want to do advocacy on something, there is so many opportunities out there. And I think social media, we were talking earlier about doom scrolling as it being, even the X formerly known as Twitter, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Um, when you're scrolling, it's like all you're really hearing what's happening in the world, and it can be overwhelming, but instead I usually want people to feel like, instead of being overwhelmed, feel like, well, there's a place for me to go and kind of figure out how to go outside of that and say, well, what can I do if this issue
Mhm.
is really bothering me, or if this is something I want to learn more about, or, so writing your member or doing any of those things. What kind of advice would you give then, really, to anybody? But if they said they wanted to run for politics, or they want to get involved, I think maybe get involved in politics, run for office,
Mhm.
do any of the things that are like making an impact, or even if they just said, I want to make an impact.
Yeah, I think this goes back to my lived experience having worked on the Hill for almost 10 years. I think remembering why you want to do it,
Yeah.
right? So if you want to run for office, if you want to lead in a specific advocacy area, like whatever it is, like center the people who are going to be most impacted, right? So I
Mhm.
think the most effective elected officials are the ones who never forget who their constituents are and center their work in terms of what are the outcomes that we want to
Mhm.
achieve? How can we really make impact and change for people's day-to-day lives? That is where people find success, in my opinion. Those are the people I want to work for, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if there are people considering entering politics or doing this work, if it is focused on, why do I want to do this? I want to make people's lives better. Okay, how do you want to make people's lives better? What are the policies? What are the changes? Because people are struggling right now. They're struggling
Yeah.
with salaries. They're struggling with education, accessing resources, being able to afford groceries. So, like, if you have a legitimate drive in your belly to do
Mhm.
whatever it takes to make a difference in people's lives, go for it. I think people should step into elected official roles. I think they should step into advocacy, leadership roles, but I could do with less of the people who are in it for themselves, for
Right.
their
No, I know.
platforms, for
Yeah,
their
yeah,
brands, because they like to hear themselves speak. That's not what we need. I feel very lucky to have worked on the Hill when I did, where
yeah.
we had, members of Congress like Congressman Levin, who I worked for,
Yeah.
who every day, like we had like a whiteboard in the center of our office and it said constituent in the middle and it was circled and it was like, don't forget why we are
This is
here.
why we're here.
We're here for our
Yeah.
constituents. And I don't know how much that is a center for everyone, but I think it's something that one has to ask themselves when they're considering running for office. I
Yeah.
don't know. What do you think, Taryn?
No, I think that's right. I love that actually. I'm like, I mean, already hearted. Congressman Levin. But now I'm like, double hearts.
Yeah.
But like, because they're so, there has to be some level of. We always say this, and I'm not insulting every elected official or my clients, I promise. But it's like there has to be some level, a little bit of narcissism, right? Like, because you're
I've
like,
heard you say
yeah,
that.
I know, because you're like, I'm a politician. I can
Yeah.
lead the world.
Yeah.
It's a big idea and it's a big responsibility. So there has to be a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But I find that the most amazing thing over the years of the clients and electeds that I've worked with is I'm like, but they all have this why. Like if you ask them why they ran for office or why public service, and the why is never about them, right?
Mhm.
Like the real why is because something happened that caused them to believe that they needed to have be the leader to lead people so they could do it so that things would be better for people, And so
Mhm.
I think that it's so important, right? Like especially after the State of the Union, which was like chaos and ridiculous and like just a television tribute to himself. It's like that was about him. And he was like, live in my pretend world, which was like, oh, everything's going fine. And you can't tell people everything's going fine because people know how they feel. You can't tell them how they feel. And so I think so smart that somebody would be like, let's remind ourselves, even physically on a whiteboard, right? Like physically remind ourselves who we're doing this for and why and what we need to do that
Mhm.
is the most critical piece of this. And I think when people are feeling hopeless because they're doom scrolling, right? And they're seeing it, it's like, Well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, and why will that make that better? Because you don't have to do everything. You don't have to single-handedly put out that fire, but you can find something that you can make an impact on and do it. And I think that's an amazing thing, and that's what we're looking to help people do as digital practitioners. Really, we're trying to find ways to connect people so that they can do these kinds of amazing advocacy and get their voice heard. And to your point, it's, those of you that are out there and want your voice heard, we want you to be heard, right? Um, and that aren't out there just because they want to get their beautiful face and brand out there. It's more about like what they're trying to do. Because I do
Mhm.
feel like people feel a little stuck, right? Like, I mean, it's feels hopeless a lot out there, and we don't want that. That's why I want to keep having these positive conversations. I'm like having my friends come on who I think are like positive people who are like making a difference, because when you listen and when you hear this, I want people to realize, oh, like
Yeah.
maybe it's not all bad. Like maybe we can make little baby steps of progress here, which is a good thing, right? Like it's an
Yeah.
amazingly good thing that we can have any kind of progress. I'm feeling hopeful, I think, about November and the elections, and I'm kind of curious if you have a prediction. I ask everyone this question, so like you can feel free to you can be negative after I just said be positive. uh,
No,
I was just curious if you had a little prediction of what you think's ahead.
I'm feeling optimistic too. I'm feeling optimistic. I think my flag, it's optimism with a flag.
That's the best kind of optimism. That's realism,
Okay.
which I like. I really like
Yeah, I
realism.
think if we make sure that going into the midterms, we rely less on celebrity,
Yeah.
less on
Oh my
influencer,
God,
and
100%.
more on humans, the
Yeah.
human lived experience that is out there, that is difficult, that is hard
Yeah.
with college tuition, with, the rate of pay, like the health insurance premiums going up. My health insurance premium went up $300 a month. Like I'm
Yeah.
not the only one. There's a lot of us out there,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
if we talk real talk about
Mm,
what the challenges are, we don't try to paint a rosy picture. We don't
yeah.
try to use or leverage outside individuals to like influence messaging, but we allow real people to lead, and we can message concrete
Mhm.
solutions that we are going to champion and actually put into action, because apparently you can get a lot done in a year, because there was a
Yeah.
lot of harm just done in one year.
Oh yeah, you can do a lot.
Yeah,
He even said
apparently.
that in his State of the Union. He's like, "Look how much we've done in a year." And
Yeah,
my son and I were sitting there, and he goes, "He has done a lot."
he
He was
has.
like,
He
that's
has.
the only thing he said that's not a lie. Like, you're
Yes.
right.
Yes.
You
He
can do a
has.
lot.
Yes, yes. Apparently you can get a lot done. So
Yeah.
can we, with that same amount of rigor and determination, create good? Can
Yeah.
we like
Yeah.
really improve people's lives, their day-to-day lives? If we can do that, and we can clearly articulate that
Yeah.
and not rely heavily on outside voices and voices that are quote unquote influencers, or that playbook has passed. I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
passed.
Well, because, I will say, we talked about this earlier, and I think it's so true. But like social media, like if you're not listening to what's being said out there and you're not hearing people are saying about the issues, and if you're not hearing what your opponent, because we're all getting this curated news, right? Like if you're not hearing and I don't even mean opponent necessarily like candidate opponent. I just mean like someone who doesn't agree with you. If you're only hearing from other people who agree with you, you are
Mhm.
not hearing what is happening in the world, and you're not able to combat it. And it does feel hopeless, or it might feel like Trump, where I heard someone say last night afterwards that he's in a gilded bubble, right? Like, because he is only hearing what he wants to hear. And if we do that, we lose so much of what is the beauty of social media. Like, there's many dark sides. We can talk about the dark sides of AI, we can talk about the dark sides of social media, but the beauty of social media is that you can have a kitchen table discussion with someone who lives all the way across the country. You can
Mhm.
have these very personal viewpoints and discussions and hear and learn things from others, or even learn if it's wrong, misinformation. But you can from all across the world and all across
Mhm.
the country. And that's one of the beautiful things of it. But if you're only listening to the choir that you're being preached to or that you're
Mhm.
preaching to, it's really not going to make a huge difference on anything. So it's always a reminder to me. I'm going to put a big whiteboard with the constituent. But
Right?
it
For
is
me,
like,
it's our clients, right? It's
yeah, it
for me,
is.
it's
Yeah.
my clients, right? And
Yeah.
my clients normally serve different constituencies.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to help them accomplish their goals in service of the communities that they serve, right? And so, but I think it's also that, like, and maybe this goes back to service. How many
Yeah.
of us did this work because we want it to be in service of something bigger
Right.
than ourselves? I think that still holds true. And I
Hmm.
think to your point about the prediction for the midterms and the strategies, and I feel like there's probably lots of people in lots of rooms, really smart and thoughtful people trying to figure this out. And I guess my message for them would be like, don't overcomplicate this. Like,
Yeah.
keep it simple,
Oh,
keep it straightforward. Like, people are struggling and they
mm,
want solutions that are going to change their lives and impact them. And we have to cut through with like not overthinking the messaging.
yeah.
It, that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I think that's 100% right. And I think you are the smartest person in the room, in whatever room. But I love, like, love what you said earlier about language, right? Like, if we can't, like, what people think sometimes, and even like the wrong impression of Democrats, but this like intelligentsia sort of idea is that we're speaking like that by accident, right? Like, even the word affordable instead of it's like costs too much. Right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, just even that, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I remind people that all the time. Like, people don't know necessarily what you're talking about, but they know that their health insurance went up, right? Like, that's
Mhm.
like, I know that I pay more. Like you said, you're like, I'm paying $300 more. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I know when I go to the grocery store, when I'm buying chicken, that I'm like, do we really want this chicken or should we switch to something else? Because it's really expensive all of a sudden, you know?
Yeah.
And I know, like, steak, forget it. I feel like beef, I'm like, ah, forget it. That was. It doesn't seem like it's worth it. I'd
That's a
rather have it at a
luxury.
restaurant. Right. Like I'd rather have it at a restaurant because this is really expensive.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that that's like, that's the people's reality, right? Is like being at the grocery store, paying for college and being worried about like, well, if there's no Department of Ed, is there like, how am I gonna like, and not having someone be able to answer your calls when you're, trying to figure this all out. It's language. It's relating. We all want to have that community and relate to each other. And I know you have created so many beautiful moments of digital community. And actually, I also think is really cool is like you do a lot of offline, online stuff, like where there are these hybrid approaches, which I think there was a movement towards like everything being online. And then now we're sort of all figuring out that shaking it out, that it's a little bit of, would you say moderation? Is that the right word? Of like hybrids
Yeah.
or,
I think they feed off of each other, right? I think we can't take for granted the value of the in-person and the
yeah,
connection and the community. But, working for one of our shared clients, we're doing a webinar for
yeah,
educators and
right.
AI and helping to help educators better understand how to use AI. And we sent out the invitation and we're like, oh, like maybe we'll get to 100 RSVPs, right? And I'm like, oh, maybe we need to do ads because we want to reach educators around the country. We had 270 RSVPs from
Oh, no.
23 states, like
We're like,
three
oh, I think
days.
we reached them.
Yeah, it was like we reached them, but like I feel like their pendulum keeps swinging, right? So during COVID, it's swaying all the way to online. And then
Yeah,
everybody was like, oh, no online. We have to all be in person.
yeah,
But actually, there is value in creating online digital platforms and events and communities where people can join from wherever they are, right?
yeah,
Because costs are expensive. Not everybody can afford to go to a conference, right? Or take
yeah,
3 days off. So I think finding that middle ground of like at the end of the day, again, what is this about? It's about community, it's about people. We create and curate spaces for them to gather in person, and we create and curate spaces for them to gather virtually. They both have value, they're
yeah,
different, but
yeah,
there's a constituency for each of them out there, right? And so now 6 years post COVID, I think it's
yeah,
like, what's that balance of people want to learn from each other, they want to connect from each other, and everyone's exhausted by what they're seeing online, right? They're
Yeah.
exhausted. So the more you have content that's of value, that's going to make someone's life easier, that's going to really bring value to an individual's life, not trying to sell them something, not trying to promote something, but like concrete, this is for you and this is going to be helpful to you. That's great, right? We need more
Well,
of
of
that.
course, you're going to get hundreds of educators wanting to know more about AI. If you like put it out there in the universe, it's exactly what you just said. It's like good content the people will find you, whether it's online or offline. It's like good
Yeah.
content maybe is really
Yeah.
what builds the community. It's like reaching out and knowing that there's a way for people to learn from each other. Because I think we all do want to learn and we want to trust what we're learning too. Misinformation is a big scary thing, but we've got kind of other people and people to rely on. It does help. Well, I want to thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I really enjoyed all the things we touched on. We touched on almost all of them. And I'm glad to hear, because I was going to ask you that before we started chatting, that your daughter is doing hopefully well, it sounds like, with all of her filler time. Um, hopefully she's doing great at school. I feel a little bit like I was on the journey with you last year. So
The college application
yeah,
journey.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's
So,
definitely called me during this podcast, and she
okay.
definitely called twice, just in case you were
The
wondering.
code, right, right, right. You
Mom,
may have
now
missed the first
answer.
one. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it and all you do to make the world a good place. So thank you.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thanks for listening to Political Trail Mix. Make sure to follow and review wherever you get your podcasts and stay connected with me on Instagram and YouTube. Let's keep this conversation going.